Ayla and the Moonlit Garden. Ayla is a kind-hearted girl who lives in a small cottage at the edge of a quiet village surrounded by tall hills and green fields, and every evening she walks along a narrow path toward a gentle hill to watch the moon rise slowly above the horizon while the air is cool and calm and the stars begin to twinkle in the dark blue sky. And she carries her small lantern that glows with warm light and listens to the soft songs of crickets and the gentle hoot of an owl echoing through the trees, and she loves to sit on a smooth rock at the top of the hill where she can see the whole village shining like a little jewel in the night. And one clear night as she watched the moon climb higher, she noticed a faint silver glow coming from a nearby forest beyond the hill, and she felt a sudden flutter of curiosity in her chest. So she decided to follow the glow to find its secret source, and she stood up and walked carefully down the hill path among the whispering grasses and tall wildflowers that bent in the breeze. And when she reached the edge of the forest, she paused to listen to the soft rustle of leaves and to feel the cool air on her face, and a gentle voice seemed to call her name from within the trees. So she tightened her grip on her lantern and stepped into the forest where moonlight shone through the branches in pale beams that danced on the mossy ground, and she followed the silver beams until she found an ancient archway made of old stones covered in soft green moss and winding ivy, and the silver glow was brighter beyond the archway. So she took a deep breath and passed beneath it into a hidden clearing that was far more beautiful than she had ever imagined. And the clearing opened to a secret garden full of flowers that glowed with their own light, with each petal shining in soft colors like pale blue, gentle pink, and soft yellow, and the leaves looked silvery as if they were wet with moon dew, and the air smelled of jasmine and night-blooming roses, and she stood very still to feel the gentle magic all around her. And then she saw 3 small lanterns resting on a low stone pedestal in the center of the garden, and each lantern was made of delicate glass and fine silver metal and held a different colored flame that flickered like dancing stars. The first lantern shone with pale blue light and hummed with a soft melody like calm water. The second lantern glowed golden like the sun and sounded like a happy drum, and the third lantern pulsed with a soft rose-pink glow like the dawn sky and whispered gentle words of dreams. And Ayla felt a warm hope fill her heart because she understood that the lanterns had a secret power to keep the garden alive and bright, and she remembered the old story her grandmother had told her about the moonlit garden that needed 3 lights to stay awake under the full moon. And she knew that the garden had called her because its magic was fading and the lights needed new energy. So she knelt in front of the stone pedestal and spoke softly to the lanterns, saying, "Dear lights, I want to help you keep your magic alive, and I will do what you ask." And at that moment the lanterns flickered and the gentle voice she heard before spoke again, saying, "Brave child, to renew our light you must find 3 gifts that we will accept: the gift of pure water from the hidden spring, the gift of golden pollen from the sunflower tree, and the gift of pink petals from the dreaming elm bush. And if you bring these 3 gifts and place them near our flames before the moon hides behind the clouds, the garden will live again." And Ayla nodded bravely even though she felt a little afraid because the forest was unknown and night was quiet and dark, and so she stood and followed the first beam of blue light that rose like a column above the blue lantern. And that beam pointed toward a narrow path leading deeper into the forest. And Ayla stepped forward along the path where the trees arched overhead with silver leaves that whispered secrets as she passed, and after walking through a tunnel of moonlit branches she heard the sound of running water and saw a small spring bubbling at the roots of an old oak tree, and the water sparkled under the moonlight like scattered stars. And Ayla knelt and held out her small wooden cup and filled it with the crystal water, and she tasted a drop and felt a clear coolness flow through her body like a gentle stream, and she smiled with wonder because it tasted of fresh dreams, and she closed her eyes and whispered thanks to the spring and sealed the cup with a leaf lid before placing it in her satchel. And then she followed the golden beam that rose from the second lantern toward a sunlit clearing where even in the night the air felt warm, and she walked to find a tall sunflower tree whose leaves glowed like gold and whose flowers bloomed like tiny suns at the ends of its branches. And when she touched the petals they shook and showered her with soft golden dust that fell like fairy light, and she caught the golden pollen in a small jar she carried and felt its warmth on her skin like a friendly caress. And she thought of all the sunny days she had spent with her grandmother in the garden and felt a sense of joy rising in her chest. and then she looked up and saw the pale pink beam stretching from the third lantern toward a distant thicket of dreaming ale bushes whose blossoms looked like soft cotton clouds and smelled like sweet music when the breeze moved through them. And she hurried toward the thicket where she saw petals drifting down like pink snow and gently gathered a handful of petals in her palms, and they felt like the softest feather and smelled like happy songs, and she placed them in a pouch to keep them safe. And at that moment a gentle voice said, "You have found the gifts, kind child, now return to the garden quickly before time runs out." And Ayla turned and saw the lanes of the forest part to show the path back to the moonlit garden glowing with silver footprints. And she followed the footprints until she reached the stone pedestal again, and she placed the cup of pure water by the blue lantern, and the lantern glowed brighter when the water sparkled like tiny stars nourishing its flame. And she sprinkled the golden pollen near the golden lantern, and it warmed with a bright sunbeam as if the lantern honored her gift. And she scattered the pink petals by the rose-pink lantern, and it shimmered with soft dreams dancing inside its glass. And then the 3 lanterns shone together with a bright light that filled the whole garden with gentle color, and the flowers all around awakened with new life and nodded in the light as if they thanked Ayla with silent smiles. And the silver voice spoke again saying, "You have saved our magic, Ayla. Your kindness has given us new life." And the lanterns floated up above the pedestal and formed a glowing arch that stretched to the moonlit sky, and the garden hummed a happy song that felt like a lullaby for the world. And Ayla sat quietly and watched the magic ripple through every flower and leaf, feeling a calm happiness in her heart as the garden glowed under the full moon. And then the lanterns returned to their places on the pedestal, and their lights burned steadily and warmly, and the arch above her shimmered for a moment longer before it faded into the moonlit air. And the stone archway beyond the garden glowed softly to show Ayla the way back to her home, and she stood and stepped through the ancient archway with her satchel of empty jars and her heart full of wonder. And when she emerged from the forest she saw the familiar hill and her little cottage glowing in the distance with a single light in the window, and she walked home along the soft grass where the night had become still and calm. And when she reached her door she heard her grandmother call out, "Ayla, are you safe?" And Ayla ran inside and threw her arms around her grandmother's waist and said, "I have seen the moonlit garden and saved its magic with gifts from the forest." And her grandmother held her gently and said, "I am so proud of you, my brave child." And Ayla showed her the empty cup, the jar, and the pouch and told her the story of the lanterns and the garden's song. And her grandmother listened with shining eyes and told Ayla that kindness and courage will always light the way through the dark. And that night Ayla placed her small lantern on the windowsill and looked out at the moonlit sky feeling warm and safe, knowing that the garden's magic lived in her heart and that she would remember this adventure forever as she drifted into a peaceful sleep.